Shawna and Jody here with Real Sisters, Real Talk.
We're glad to have you joining us as we talk about growing in our faith with God.
Welcome back to Real Sisters, Real Talk. We are having holiday editions right now because, man, we're in it. We are in the season of the holidays, and Thanksgiving is now behind us. I hope you had an amazing Thanksgiving and got to be with people that you love, or at least make a phone call and talk with people that you love on Thanksgiving Day. And I hope that you had a really good time just focusing on the attributes of God and who He is. And I am one of these people who, I know you decorate big for Thanksgiving, Jodes, but for me, as soon as Thanksgiving is over, the very next day, Black Friday, when everybody else is out shopping, I want the tree up and I want the Christmas decorations out. I want to get Christmas started. What about you?
I am so the same way. On Friday morning after Thanksgiving, I wake up and the first thing I do is all of the fall stuff comes down and I love to decorate for the fall. So I have a lot out for fall. It doesn't compare to Christmas. I
Mm-hmm.
have boxes and boxes of Christmas stuff and it will all come out. We will get our tree on day after Thanksgiving every year we get our tree. And so that is done deal and moving into the holiday season. I love decorating for Christmas. So much fun. And so day after Thanksgiving.
Okay, this is behind the curtains, but behind the curtain conversation real quick, Jodes, but I have to ask you really quick because a childhood memory just came back when we were talking about decorating the tree and such. And it was that for so many years, I don't know how many years, we had a tradition with Mom and the 4 girls of going to the Santa Claus parade.
Yes. In
The
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Yeah. We thought it was cold, which is funny now that I live in Michigan, but I'm sure it was cold, legitimately cold. But when does that happen in the calendar year? Was that after Thanksgiving?
So that is the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and they do televise
Okay,
it here and
that's what
stuff
I
too. I
thought.
don't know how big it is. One year we even ended up on the news. They interviewed us, which is so funny. But we would wear, oh my gosh, we would go to church on Sunday morning, and then we would pack up some hot chocolate and some hot tea and stuff, and we would go in the after.
Cards,
Oh yes,
games,
oh yes, and then mittens
mhm.
and Santa hats and the whole thing,
Mhm.
and then we would,
Blankets.
you bet, and we would put our chairs on the street and wait until they close the street down, and then we'd move down into the street and we would kind of camp out for the day until the parade
Yeah,
came,
we
which is
did.
so silly, but we had so much fun doing that every year. I'm going to tell you, and I didn't think about it until you said this, but the year Johnny and I started dating, so our first date was on November 2nd, and he came with us. It was the 4 of us girls, Mom and Johnny, and we had only
Oh
been
my goodness.
and we'd only been dating for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks at that point. But that parade was the first time he ever held my hand, and I married that
Ooh
man.
la la. Ooh, spicy.
Spicy.
That's so fun. I love that. What a great memory.
Yeah, that
Oh
was really
man.
fun. It was a fun thing we did. We did it for a lot of years, didn't we?
We did. We did. And
Yeah.
it was so fun. And we looked so forward to it. And, just it's just part of that weekend. Because I think the reason you and I strongly want to get all the decorations out the day after Thanksgiving is because that's what we did. That's what we did in our family. That's what we did at home. And there's so much joy in pulling out all the decorations. I'll be honest with you, a couple of years ago, all the joy of pulling out the Christmas decorations took a little bit of a turn for me. And it was the year after we lost Dad
Yeah.
because Dad went to heaven on January 1st. And so at my house on January 1st, the tree was still up, all the lights were still up, everything was still Christmas. And I was underneath a Christmas quilt sitting on the couch on that morning, really just trying to process, knowing that Dad's life was coming to an end. He hadn't gone to heaven yet, but knowing it was any moment and really processing that through with the Lord when I got a phone call from you and you said, Shawna, Daddy just went to heaven. And it was under the tree with all the Christmas decorations. So yeah, as joyous as this holiday season is, there's some triggers for me, and it's like a mixed bag to pull out the Christmas decorations because in many ways it makes me miss Dad, and it makes me, go back to those days and what we walked through in that Christmas holiday season.
Yeah, And so honestly, we want to talk about grief in the holidays today and how do we walk in that. But one of the things I want to point out about what you just shared, Shauna, is that that is honestly completely normal in the grief process.
Mm.
There's a great curriculum or yeah, group called Grief Share. You can go to griefshare.org and you can actually look up where local churches near you are having this program and working through it. So we are just wrapped ours up right before Thanksgiving at our church. We do it every fall, but it's a 13-week program that really helps you walk through the grief process. One of the things that they talk about is being ambushed with grief. And
Mm.
so it what it is you might smell a cologne and it triggers a memory. So like if dad's cologne or like this, you get out Christmas decorations and it's been 2 years, but it triggers that memory of getting that phone
Yeah.
call because the Christmas decorations are up. And so it's being ambushed by emotions. And so, and even talks through like, how do we actually handle that? Because we've talked about this before, there are times when we have to push those emotions away. Like we have to push that aside because we can't deal with it in this very moment. But we do need to set up time to feel that. And
Right.
so I think that even like taking notice of that and being prepared to feel some of the feels, to feel the grief, not to, if we're 3 4 years out of our loss and we're circling in the exact same place that we were 3 or 4 years ago, then we're probably stuck in our grief and we need to do some work so that we can move forward and God can bring some healing. But we when we have had a loss of a family member or somebody significant in our lives and the holidays come around, we pretty much should expect a little
An
ambush.
ambush?
Mhm.
Oh, man. There's a radio personality who's got a ministry. His name is Ron Hutchcraft, and he's a sweet soul. And in a conversation I was having with him about him losing his wife, he said his description of grief was he said, it's, your life is a song, and losing somebody that you love dearly is like a new note in the melody of your life. It's like a minor key. Those the sad keys that they play in the movies. It's this minor key, and he says sometimes, as you do the work and as you walk through healing and as time passes, sometimes it's not almost even audible, but it's still a part of your song. It's still there because it does never go away. But there are times when it is the dominant note and maybe the only note playing, and it's all by itself and it's all you hear. And I thought, man, that's such a good description of grief because it's not like grief is a process that we walk through. Like now I'm grieving and then I'll grieve less and less and less and then I won't grieve anymore.
No.
That's not how grief works. But it's helpful to hear you talk about it, about kind of prepping yourself for the ambush, if you will, like expecting that Christmas is one of those times that your feelings can sneak up on you. And so, yeah, how do we prepare our hearts for this or even decide in advance should an ambush happen over the next few weeks? How am I going to handle that? What would be good for me?
Yeah. And and even to create some space to actually go there, have some memories and kind of process it out. But, honestly, we talked a couple weeks ago, we talked a lot about the presence of God in our thankfulness episode and our being thankful episode. And even that, like, as you feel that grief, and I'm wondering this together, but as we feel that grief and those things come up, because even as you were talking about dad, like I was fighting tears just a few minutes ago, and
Mhm.
because that's a real loss for us. I wonder if we just use that in the same way of bring everything to the Lord. And so as we feel that ambush of emotions, say, Lord, I'm actually feeling sad right now
Mm.
because I miss dad or I miss this loved one. And I'm going to hold that with you, but I'm feeling sad. Here's what I miss about that person or that relationship. That's probably a healthy way to walk in it, but we have to create space for that.
Yeah, we do. And then, in that space too, the verse that comes to mind is Psalm 147:3. God heals the brokenhearted.
Yeah.
and binds up their wounds. God's close to the brokenhearted and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's Psalm 34:18. But he can handle that space. Have you ever had somebody who like you entrusted a piece of your heart and you're like, "Ooh, that was a bad choice. They can't handle this space with me."
Yeah.
I remember one of our kids doing something really stupid and just I was like, I can't believe that, my kid did this and shared it with a good friend of mine and she just was not capable of holding that space for me and being with me in that space. She quickly changed the subject and I had regret, for
Yeah.
opening up to her in that way. And so we do want to use some wisdom and discernment in who we open up with. Um, for certain 100%, God can hold that space with you. And
Yeah.
not only just hold the space with you, but he can heal your heart in the midst when we're honest with him about the sadness that we're feeling and the grief that we're feeling, or maybe the anger that we're feeling.
And so he is the one to take it to. Matthew 5:4 says, blessed, this is in when Jesus is teaching, he says, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. We when we go to God with our grief, he will comfort. He is the God of comfort. He will comfort us in our sorrow and in our grief. He's the one who can hold it, which is just what you
Hmm.
said. I love that.
Yeah. I love that you invited us to go there, Jodes, and to just fully experience it. And I think one of the things about negative or difficult feelings and emotions is sometimes it comes along with a buddy that says, this isn't going to go away. You're always going to feel like this. And this
Yes.
is where Ron Hutchcraft's, his wisdom about it being a note it is going to continue to be a part of your song. It's just not always going to be the loudest note,
Yeah.
is a comfort, to like, it's okay. You can let yourself feel the hard feelings and not fall into believing, oh my goodness, I'm this deep sadness that I feel at this moment. I'm going to feel this way forever now. But to trust that, and being open and honest with God in that he's going to meet us in that and that he's going to strengthen us. He mourns with those who mourn and he comforts those who need to be comforted, but he also strengthens those who trust in him and go to him.
Yeah. Which is such a gift and such a beautiful thing. So grief in the holidays, it is it is a normal thing to have some of those that loss trigger, even if you didn't lose a loved one in the holiday season, because holidays are a time when family typically gathers. And so when there's an empty seat at the table, we feel
Yeah.
that. And so that's normal.
Hmm.
Just kind of want to name that's
To miss.
normal.
I'm thinking about some other kinds of grief that could surface over the holidays too. Like this one so surprised me and it wasn't Christmas, but it so surprised me. So I grew up in SoCal. The whole family's there. We were all together always at holidays, as you guys still are. Um, and I think it was my first Mother's Day away from home. And I just really felt like this deep sadness, like they're all there with my mom and
Yeah.
I'm not there. And there was some real grieving that I went through in regards to that. So maybe it has to do for you. Maybe you're thinking, man, the people that I love are not with me. Like I'm not going to be with my people for Christmas. I got to be with them for Thanksgiving and my heart is full, but I'm not going to be able to be with them at Christmas time. And maybe, the grieving is coming from just the distance that's between you.
Yeah. You know, honestly, naming other things too, like there could be a broken relationship this year that wasn't last year. And
Right.
there's a grieving of that, that loss in a relationship. There's there could be, changes in your lifestyle that took place. Or there's a lot of things that could cause grief. It's not just loss of life. There's a lot of things that we have to grieve.
Mhm.
Some people I mean, this is maybe a stretch, but I'm just going to be really honest and raw here. Like I remember, now our daughter just got married this summer. Our son got married 5.5 years ago. But as joyful as those experiences are, and as like our daughter-in-law, I'm just telling you, she is gold. Our son-in-law,
Mhm.
like I'm we just we are I'm so grateful for these two people who have joined our family. Like they are amazing, godly people who I love like they're my own. Like I raised them from infancy. Like I just love these two so much. So we're really blessed. There was still a piece of me that had to grieve my kids moving out of the house, or
Mhm.
grieve that little piece of like now. And I want them to be completely responsible to that person. That's a thing I actively have to do as a parent too. But there is a little piece of grief in that too, if we're being honest. Like, oh, because it's a change. We grieve the
Mhm.
change. I don't know that we grieve a loss, we grieve the change. And so that might even be something that you're dealing with this Christmas. Like it's life just a little bit different because there's been a change that took place, and you're grieving that. There's all kinds of ways that we grieve in this time of year.
Yeah, it can be it can be a mixed bag.
Yeah.
There's so much joy around the holiday season, but when you're walking through grief, it can be a real challenge too. What are some of the ways, Jodes, like, did you have any of the ambushing or the triggers in regards to losing dad or your in-laws, specifically around the holiday season? And what did you do with it? How did you handle that?
Yeah, so I've definitely experienced some ambushes. And so yes, like because we lost dad in the holidays, the Christmas decorations, the holiday kind of season does bring some things up for dad. And even with our in-laws too. With my in-laws, we lost my father-in-law and then my mother-in-law 3 years later. And um so some of the familiar things that we did as a family, I think have been triggers for me in. And I think especially with, our first loss with my father-in-law, I don't think I was quite ready for that, to feel
Mm,
the way it felt. So um it was a little surprising to feel the emotion of, oh wait, we're missing somebody at the table. Um Even like taking a family, this might sound silly, but taking a family picture, and it's like, but there's someone missing. This isn't it's
everybody's not here. Yeah.
incomplete. But it will never be complete again. So and then there's this also this understanding, like even in the moment of recognizing like this is incomplete, there's also this complete
Mm,
understanding of, oh Lord, I wouldn't change this for my father-in-law for a second, because he's in your presence. And
right.
he this is what this is what life is. Like, it just that understanding of this is, there's loss in this life. And I wouldn't want to change that for him. And so I think we can hold both, still be
Mhm.
sad for our circumstance and still understand that this is a part of life.
Yeah, when you talk about taking the picture, I feel like God I feel like God kinda taught me something or spoke something to me in regards to, like, a picture just being like, "This is just now." Because I think we want pictures to be perfect, right? Like, we want to look a certain way. The ones that, make Facebook are the ones that have already been through the filter, or they pass through, the 8 that you deleted because that one was the good one. Whatever, we want it to be perfect. But when my son, because with my firstborn is a girl, and so we had like a 3-month picture, a 6-month picture, a 9-month picture, a 12-month picture, a 15-month picture, an 18-month picture. You know what I mean? And with Drayson, I remember like at 1 year making an appointment for his 12-month picture. And then he had like fallen and he had this big, welt on his head. And I was like, well, we'll wait till that clears up and then we'll take it. By the time that cleared up, he had like a popped lip. He was a boy and he was learning to walk. And he always, I don't know what his deal was, but he walked off of couches. Like he would climb up onto the couch and he'd walk and then he'd keep walking as if the couch was going to continue when the couch stopped, and then he would fall. But anyway, he just was always banged up, and so I postponed. We don't actually have a 12-month picture of him because I postponed it so many times. We just end up having like a 15-month picture. And I feel like during all of that, the Lord was like, just take the picture.
Yeah.
This is now. It's not perfect, and waiting for it to be perfect, it's never going to be perfect. Just capture the moments for what they are. That's all that is. That's all a picture is you're capturing a moment. And this is the moment. And this moment may not have all the people that you want to have there in the picture for lots of different reasons. But just capture the moment and don't worry about it being perfect.
Okay, so what a great analogy. So you missed his 12-month picture because you kept
Mm-hmm.
postponing because it wasn't going to look perfect or the way you wanted it to look, right? Isn't that we can miss the joy of the holiday season. We
Mm.
can miss the joy of gathering as a family because we're so stuck on it's not what we want it to look like.
Yeah, it's not perfect.
Right. And so just even being mindful of that as we enter into this holiday season, how do we enter into there might be a person missing at your table, but how do we enter into this season with joy? How do we celebrate the things that we are experiencing? How do we engage fully with the people who are present so that we can actually enjoy and be present in this holiday season? I think
Yeah.
sometimes we can think that if we're if we experience joy in this holiday season, we're not honoring the person who is lost. Can
Mm,
I just say you are not honoring the person who has gone ahead of us by destroying your time together as a family this year.
mm.
You're not.
That's a good word. That's a heavy word,
It is.
but it is a good word. Yeah, I get that it can feel like betrayal
Mhm.
to experience joy, but it is absolutely not. That is a really good word.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things I think is to give ourselves permission to share stories. That's not like, oh, I'm going to make everybody sad. It's like we can share joyful stories. We can laugh. Like I know for our family after dad passed, we gathered right after and we laughed and told about when grandpa did this or the time that he did that, and we had such a great time laughing. And so it's not a matter of like, when we gather, and it's the same thing with my in-laws when we gather, it's not like we
Mm.
don't talk about them because they're gone. We've
Right.
also lost my brother-in-law on Johnny's side of the family, and it's not that we don't talk about them because they're gone. There's so many great memories that we can share,
Mm.
and we can talk openly about that without it being negative or
Right.
completely sad. And there might be some tears, and that's okay too. But it's good to be able to talk with people that we love and remember that's okay too.
It is. So just as you shared that, a memory came to mind. So I'm just gonna drop this in there real
Yeah.
quick. But there was a time that we were water skiing, and apparently Johnny is the featured guest of Real Sisters Real Talk for today,
Okay.
because there was a time that we were water skiing, and my dad had a habit of he always would drive the boat for everybody else. Everybody else got to go first, and then when everybody else had skied, on the nice glassy morning water, then you're like, Dad, do you want to ski? And he's like, sure, I'll ski. And he inevitably would jump in every time with his glasses on. So it was time for him to ski, and he got the life vest on, and he jumps in the water, and he comes up looking surprised. His eyes are real big, and he's saying something, but nobody can quite make out what he's saying. And we all just did the math, right? Like, oh, he jumped in without his glasses on. So Johnny, like intuitively, like immediately dives in. He saw something in the water and he grabbed it and he pulls it up. He comes up to the top of the water. He opens up his hand and it's Dad's teeth.
His
And he freaked
dentures.
out. His dentures. And Johnny freaked out because he's got a handful of Dad's teeth, and he drops them again, and then he's got to catch them again. And oh man, that was a
I
good one.
remember that so well. He flew off the back of the boat and dove straight down,
Yeah.
and thank goodness he did. We were literally, I think we were at the river, but we would always ski at like Lake Mojave. It was deep, 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 deep. Like if he had not caught those, which us girls are like, "What, Dad? What'd you lose?
Yeah.
What,
I'm
Dad?"
sorry, I can't understand you. Use your words, Daddy. We don't know what you're saying. And Johnny just like
Dove.
a, I don't know, some kind of, secret agent spy or whatever. He was like, boom, he was out of the boat into the water, snatched that thing up, rescuing the day, and then surprised to find out what he had actually gathered up in his hands was pretty funny.
And they were pretty crucial. Like, it would have ruined the
Yeah, it was.
weekend and then some weeks afterwards. So we were really
Yeah, it
grateful that it all
was a
went
good
down the
save.
way it did. It was a good save. I think he yelled when he jumped in the water and then water had rushed in his mouth. But oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness. See, and it's fun stories like that. Like, we have so
Yeah,
many of those of dad just, he was so full of life and fun and part of everything we did. So he learned to
yeah,
water ski when he was, I think, 60 something. I mean, not water ski, excuse me, snow ski. We water skied we grew up water skiing, but snow
yeah,
skiing,
yeah.
he learned to snow ski when he was like 60 years old, which is so
Mm-hmm.
impressive.
Yeah, he was just like, let's go for it.
Yeah. You guys do it. I want to do it.
It's dad. Yeah.
Yeah. So fun.
So fun. It
Yeah.
is good to laugh. It's good to remember, and those, I mean, I think that's so much more honoring than being sad and not wanting to say something.
Yeah. So this holiday season, we just want to say to you, like, we recognize some people are really dealing with some real grief this Christmas, and it might be really fresh that you've lost a loved one this holiday season, and to you I want to say, we are so incredibly sorry for your loss. um that makes the holidays really hard because we typically do gather as a family, and so we recognize that, but we also recognize that God meets us. You are not alone. God meets
Mhm.
us in the midst of our grief. He meets us in the midst of our sadness. He is present. He is there with you. Even if you don't sense him right now, I am telling you, he is with you. You are not
Hmm.
alone. And he wants to meet you right where you're at. And so turn to him. Bring your grief to him. Be honest with what you're feeling and lay it out before the Lord, because he wants to hold you in this. And from Sean and I, we just want to say, you are loved. And yeah, we recognize this can be a difficult time. So we just pray a blessing over you.
I know we're wrapping up, but I
Yeah.
just came across a verse that I want to share if that's
Yeah,
cool.
of course.
Actually, I'm going to give you two of them. Psalm 35, weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing
Oh,
comes in the morning. And then Luke 6:21, blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. I love that. There's just so much hope in that.
yeah, absolutely. And that joy is comes from the Lord, right? It's that ah, sweet relationship with him and the fulfillment of the promise that we will be with him
Hmm.
someday. And so beautiful. Yeah. So as you enter into this holiday season, just even if you are experiencing ambushes or know that that's coming, we want you to be ready with that and create some space to feel what you need to feel, but also lean into the people that are around you, lean into relationship and be present in what's coming for you this year. And as you do that, we just want to remind you we serve a real God and he really loves you.